Here. That's good. Advance the side of there because we don't have USBs for that.
Yeah, we could do it on the computer. Yes, pardon me, here, Barbara. Yeah. Recognize Chris. I got one. Barbara. I think that might. If you name it, you're going to leave somebody out. So I would just find out. I'm actually. We don't really have to. But it'd be nice to have them say it. I don't think those are going to we're not ready. I'll be ready to write it. And see, I'm gonna get to the on meeting. Yes. Try to remember. Okay.
Yeah. The little boy is telling
They've got name tags now, but the boys, yes, they're very proud. As they should be. They're very good. Yeah. He's obviously not required. Yeah. He's paid for it. He's acquired. I'm guessing he's acquired.
Yeah.
And he's raising his boys. I'm hoping that we've got some good scores.
I tried talking about the
You're the organ, I know. Yeah, there's so we all the other individuals.
Start the slide there. You're gonna walk or do you want to do that when you're ready?
I can do that when we're ready for the slide. We'll have it'll be easier with the bigger pictures.
Okay.
Good for you. Well, that one.
Please come to your seats. We're going to begin in a minute. Good morning. I'm Greg Harris. I'm the senior warden of your vestry, and I'll be presiding over the meeting this morning. The 173rd annual meeting of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral's 173rd annual meeting. Welcome. Nathan, would you please begin us with prayer?
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God, make the doors of this house wide enough to receive all who need human love and fellowship, narrow enough to shut out all envy, pride, and strife. Make its threshold smooth enough to be no stumbling block to straying feet, but rugged and strong enough to turn back the tempter's power. O God, make the door of this house the gateway of your eternal kingdom for everybody, four-legged and not. You who have given us this heritage, grant us grace, gratefully to receive it, wisely to use it, and faithfully to continue it to your glory and to our salvation through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
So the first order of business is to dispense with the reading of the minutes. I'd love to have a motion to proceed accepting the minutes without including them. And a second? All in favor? Good. Second order of business is to have the chair of our nominating committee this year, Ford Morishita, come up and give a report on that committee's work. Ford.
Good morning, everyone. So nice to be with you this morning. I had the privilege to serve as chair for this wonderful group this year on our nomination committee, and I'd like to introduce those members to you right now. If you're in attendance today, please stand while I read your name. So representing the outgoing class of the vestry is Faith Kuramang, Ellen Murray, and Barbara Whitmore, and myself. Representing the 5 at-large members that are nominated by the congregation each year are Frederica Banks, Megan Brazo Erickson, Pam Erickson, Susan Lindauer, and Carl Moore. In addition to that, our fabulous trio of Dean Nathan LaRue, Greg Harris, and Junior Warden Chris Maloney, Senior Warden Greg Harris and Chris Maloney. And a special thanks to Jan Corver, because Jan, believe it or not, has served as capacity for both the chaplain and recorder for multiple years. And for doing this for me personally, I just want to tell her how much I thank her. So a round of applause for the committee. Now, before I announce the nominees for vestry, I just want to take a couple minutes to just talk a little bit about our process, you know?
You need the mic right in your face for it.
Okay. Usually I don't have a problem with that, so I have to use my teacher voice.
Use your outdoor teaching voice.
Wow. How's that? You know, in trying to come up with a slate of nominees every year is both easy and a challenge here at Trinity, because the easy part is that we have this wealth of amazing leadership skills and experiences to draw from. Oh, it's a little different. But at the same time, the challenging part comes in terms of trying to think about those members that are leaving each year and trying to place those skills and talents that really match the needs of the congregation. And that isn't always an easy thing to do, in addition to getting more numbers of people to be nominated as potential candidates. So the challenge that we always have every year is trying to really match those needs and match those candidates to really work forward to doing the best work that we can. And that process isn't always really easy. So for anybody here who's interested in that process and wanting to participate in this process, in a few minutes, you'll have an opportunity to either nominate someone or nominate yourself to maybe be one of those 5 at-large members for next year's nomination committee. So it's my honor to be able to identify and introduce this year's vestry members. And I would like them, if they are here, to really come up here in the front and join me and stand with me. So those members of the class are Vern Jackson, Denise Myrick, Kathy Sutton, and Pat Zimmer. Please congratulate the nominees.
Thank you, Ford. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the slate of vestry nominees. Second, all those in favor? Welcome.
Congratulations. And last, I'd like to identify and introduce the nominees for diocesan delegates. And so the first introduction is going to be the 2 people that will be serving in the class of 2027. And those 2 nominees are John Barnes. Please come up if you are here, and Melissa Bocardi. Yeah, I think John couldn't make it today. And the nominee that will be completing a 2-year term for the class of 2025 is Susan Zoll. So please give your applause for those people that serve in the delegate.
And we also need a motion to approve the delegates. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Ford, thank you so much for your service. On the nominating board. Now is the time, as Ford forecasted, for us to elect 5 at-large.
Thank you first.
Oh, yes. Not quite the time for us to nominate the next nominating committee members. Chris Hardman, I know you're in the room. Barbara Blakely is not here, but you served loyally, faithfully, and dedicatedly to represent us at the diocesan convention, and we'd like to show our appreciation. Can you please come forward, Chris? And Barbara, if you're watching at home, we love you and we appreciate you too. Okay, now we're going to open up the floor for nominees to serve on the nominating committee. Board did a pretty good job, I think, describing the importance of this work. So we're eager to have that slate filled at this time. Who has a nomination? Susan Lindauer has a nomination.
Gina Williamson Skinner.
Gina Williamson Skinner.
Yes, she has already agreed.
And she's already agreed.
She's not.
Okay, thank you. Dale Bowler, I see your hand.
Don Stevenson.
Don Stevenson. That's 2, 3 more to go. I always kind of feel like an auctioneer in this sort of situation. I can wait here as long as you. And if you're in the back, raise your hand real big, because I can't necessarily see through the sea of people. Dale, you got another one, or is that just? Mary
Mary,
Shivlin.
do you accept the nomination? Okay.
Thank you. Thinking, right? You're thinking. You want to nominate yourself? Anybody want to nominate yourself? Carl, you're nominating someone? Who are you nominating? Oh, you're nominating yourself. Carl Moore. Yes. Deb Federici.
Deb? Sure.
Yes.
Do I count 5 there?
Yep.
I think? Excellent. Hi, Barbara. Say it again.
Jim Peterson.
Jim Peterson.
We'll call Jim our alternate in case someone can't serve.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to close the nominations. We have 5 plus an alternate. Can I get a motion to approve the slate of nominees as named? And a second. All in favor? Thank you very much. Now we're going to go into a series of reports. Our treasurer, Bill Bennett, is going to give the first one.
Good morning. I think you should all be able to hear me.
You may want to take the mic out of its stand, Bill, and hold it close to your.
There you go.
There you go. I'm often asked,
Hold it up.
how are the finances at Trinity? And I always say, fine, of course. Behind that, there's quite a bit of depth of conversation to be had. Just for the rhythm of it, we actually have to straddle 3 years in finances. We're not just here today. We're right now finishing the independent audit of the prior year. And in fact, the data you're going to see today is from the prior year. It's not from today, it's not from tomorrow. The audit confirms that we've done a good job. It confirms that we're up to date with the best practices and brings us up to date of any changes in the laws. That should be done by now. It's not, it's in process, will be done soon. That's last year. Next year is involved because we're in the process of starting the budget for the next year. Next year being not the calendar year, but the fiscal year. So right now, we've started the process, talking to all the commissions, all of the guilds, all of the independent entities in the congregation to see what their needs are, what their expectations are, what their budget might need to be. The committee is formed, subcommittee of the finance committee, and starts meeting soon. And will by May have a firm budget for the coming fiscal year. The third year is the one we're in right now. Every month, approximately, the finance committee meets and goes through dozens of pages full of numbers, spreadsheet numbers, over and over again that are carefully created by our finance manager, Paul Flieger. And this is complicated. All of this is complicated. Just getting last year's books ready for the auditor is complicated. I think of Paul's job as like someone trying to iron a tablecloth. There's an infinite surface with lots of wrinkles. And, over and over and over he goes to get it all right. All of Paul's numbers have been recreated in a nice format for us by our communications expert, Arlen Myers. And I hope those slides are here ready to go. They're not.
I have no slides for you, Bill.
No slides. So I asked Paul, slides. If you'll open up your booklet. Those are the slides I'm talking about. They're nice pie graphs instead of 300 and some odd line items and numbers. You have 2 pie graphs. One of them relates to money coming in. One of them relates to money going out. One on top is revenues. And the top number involved shows you how much money actually came in through the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. 2.651477. This is a couple percent higher than what was used in the year before. If you start at 12 o'clock, we'll work around clockwise. The first money that comes in is from events and designated programs. 12%. Actually, that includes a parking lot. Parking lot's amazingly productive. About a quarter of that is parking lot revenues. We do, obviously, you all come to events, meals, things that are sold, but we don't do that many things that we sell. The second thing in the pie chart is endowment and investments. One of the things the finance committee has to do is husband your money. We have to have enough cash to cover a couple of payrolls. We have to have liquid money for unexpected things that are kept in money markets. And then we have the endowment. We don't actually micromanage the endowment. That's all farmed out to an independent company called Selwood locally. The actual monies are funneled through the diocese. We in fact have a majority of the money in the diocese investment fund and increasing amount of what's called a socially responsible investment fund. The funds are actually housed in Cincinnati. Bank you've never heard of probably before because it doesn't even exist in Portland. But anyway, it's all very carefully done. We get really detailed reports about this on a quarterly basis, along with estimations from Selwood about their view of the marketplace. The actual amount of money coming in from endowments investments you see is 26%. There was 25% last year. When I came to Trinity in 91, it was more like 10%. And the total amount of money in the budget was probably a quarter or a fifth of what it currently is. So the endowment is becoming a more and more important way of funding things here at the Trinity. Trinity Wall Street, as you may know, has more money they can use, but we don't get it. We come around to the big green piece that says plate and pledge. You should know that the plate went almost away with COVID. Plate was $120,000+ at a time, went down to 0 to 30, come up to 60. We're budgeting 90 for this current fiscal year. We're going to argue about how much to budget for the coming year. We try and make things easier. Many people no longer carry cash in their pockets. Some younger people don't even know how to deal with a check. So we're trying to automate some of this, but you should know that if you pay us with a Visa card or Venmo, there's a fee. You can Venmo people for free that are your friends, but if you Venmo something as big as Trinity, someone takes away 1.9%. But that'll be there for you to use. So that's how the money comes in. It's again, there's a page and a half of lines spread across sheets of paper. If you'd like to see more detail, we'd love to have you on the finance committee. All of our meetings are open to any parishioner that would like to come, roughly the third Tuesday at 5:30. We're going to go to the second pie chart. Where in the world does all the money go? And we'll start at the top again. Uncommon warmth. I love these buckets. Community life and fellowship. And you move around deep beauty, music, art, and worship. You should understand that when you give money to music or outreach or whatever, it's their money. It's they get to decide how to use it. We help them with the budgeting of it, and we may supplement it. We may tax them a little bit to have them cover part of the overhead that's relevant to what they do. But the money is pretty much their money. Outreach and pastoral care. The only thing novel on the pie chart this year is worship. Worship was spread around and smothered among other categories, but now it's been pulled out, and you can see what it actually costs to provide worship services and other things. Pastoral care is not included in that. You'll see that at another spot. General expenses, and really these things have been pretty well fixed. We incrementally increase budgets to try and cover what we expect to be incremental needs. We were wrong in terms of inflation, the crashing and the drop of the stock market, and a few other things. We have ways of adjusting for that along the way. You see at the top, at 11 o'clock, the DPA. This is the money we provide to the diocese to defray their expenses, and is proportionate to how rich the parishes are. And that fraction is pretty constant because it's driven by a mathematical equation. So you'll see 11–12% consistently over the decades for Trinity. And again, each one of those little pies is broken down into dozens of line items, each one of which has to be figured out in the weeks to come with the coming budget. We remain on budget. We try and constantly readjust things. If we see some area that's under budget, we wonder what's going on. Something's over budget. We have to move the money around and fix that up on a monthly basis. And I'm glad these are here. I'm sorry the slides weren't here, but there we go. Lots more detail as possible. Another funny thing, just a moment, funny thing about this is that the annual giving campaign is not part of the finance committee. It's directly related to the vestry. We have no clue who gives how much and what, other than what Shannon will publish and tell us who has pledged, which families have pledged, and which haven't by subtraction. But so we have no, and you really, if you pledge $5, that's a pledge. You get a parking sticker for your car. I think we don't discriminate between $50,000 and $5. So, okay, question time. Please.
Are the salaries and benefits embedded in different areas?
They're spread around a bit, yes. So, the fraction of the salary that's directly related to providing worship services is under worship. The time that our dean has to do this or somebody has to do that is put in the other categories as well. To the best they could. Well, please.
Follow up to Barb's question. Is there an estimate about what percent, because it's spread out, what percent of the overall budget goes to salaries and benefits? Like if you had to take it out of its wedges, and make it into one wedge, what you did with worship.
Paul, do you know offhand?
It's
About 60, a little over, yeah, about 60%.
you have to understand.
60.
You have to understand that the number of volunteer hours is amazing.
Yeah.
And if you added that up, it would be an overwhelming number if you put a dollar amount on it. But yes. Other questions? If not, we'll try and.
One more.
Please.
What was the investment rate of return?
Well, for this current year right now, the estimation was 5.1% is what they were looking for. That was before the market zoomed back up again. We take out on an annualized basis a certain fraction of the corpus. So it's currently 4.75% with the expectation that we're going to be making 5.1%. So again, if you look back in the history, the endowment was $1 million when I joined. Now it's $13 million. And so it's growing thanks to the largesse and legacies of our past members. Remember us in your wills.
Tony, did you have it? Thank you, Bill. As members, it's our responsibility to formally accept the financial report. So may I get a motion to do so?
So.
And a second. All those in favor of accepting the financial report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Continuing with finances, the chair of our annual giving campaign, Wright, is here with his 2 young children. And
Right on space bar.
I'll call you in for troubleshooting.
Good morning, everybody. Bill and I did not plan that segue about AGC being very difficult to look at, but I do want to unpack a little bit where we are. I won't be looking at who spent parking passes or doing any household giving. As Nathan has mentioned in emails, I'll say it again today, our goal, which is a real stretch for us this year, is 1.7 million. We're about 90% of that overall. I've been asked to provide a little more detail about that and encouraged to be very wonky. So I've tried to set my personal wonky meter to about 20%, knowing that some of you that want the other 80% can ask for that after the fact. Okay, does this slide look familiar to anyone? Great, it's been in the display case for something like 4 months, so I'm glad a few of you have seen it. When we first got the word from finance and the numbers of proof of mastery that we were going to be jumping to a $1.7 million pledge goal for AGC, it was a little terrifying. It was a large stretch. It was about 20% more than our actual pledge income last year after quite a bit of appeals in the spring. This is how we structured the goal, thinking we might be able to achieve it in this way. So the dark purple column on the bottom just assumes that the same amount of money that was pledged in 2023 would come across to this year. That's about $1.43 million. To get from 1.43 to 1.7, you need $270,000. And we thought if everyone who pledged last year might be able to stretch to pay 10 to 15% more, pledge more this year, that would give us about $200,000 more, which is that kind of light purple bar in the center. And then the very top, the blue, this was kind of a put your finger into the wind and guess, but we thought if we could get enough new pledges to get about $75,000 additional, that would get us about that 270 that we needed to go from last year to where we need to be for this year's goal. So I want to report against that real quickly and do a couple of thank yous. Sorry to give you another pie chart after having just gotten pretty deep into both the bills. The $75,000 we were hoping to find from new people. If you see the blue slice of the pie, this is looking at the 639 people who have pledged so far. If you'd like to be enfranchised, to vote today, as Nathan is saying, or if you're still considering, we certainly encourage you to get in so that we can have the pledge to be part of the budgeting process. But that 12% of the 639 was worth $72,000 in pledges. So right about our guess for what we might be able to accomplish with new folks. New in HGC parlance doesn't necessarily mean new to the cathedral. It could also be new to pledging. Just means someone who didn't pledge last year, but who decided to pledge for this year. The light green slice of the pie, the 5% increase, they didn't quite increase by 10 to 15%, but very thankful for those increases. That 5% of folks collectively contributed about $7,000 more in their pledge this year than last year. And finally, this is just amazing. Those of you who really rose to the challenge, prior pledgers who considered pledging 10 to 15 and thought that you could, that's 43% of our current pledges for a total of $192,000. So if you add the 192, the 7, and the 72 for the new, it's about $271,000 pledged this year compared to last year on those folks. So that's great. Thinking about that initial column, we did really well with new folks who pledged. Thank you to those of you who are either new to the congregation or new to the pledging process. Really thankful for your contribution. Those of you guys, the 48% of these pledging units who were able to give more this year, especially when the campaign was happening as stocks were doing quite a dive in the fall. We're so thankful for your contribution, support, generosity as well. Where we're missing right now is that purple bar, the prior pledging from year to year. There's another set of folks, 8% who decreased their pledge versus last year, 31% who stayed flat, totally fine. We did not think 100% of people would, in fact, be able to increase their pledging. If you're inclined to review your pledge and increase it, obviously Shannon's happy to talk to anyone about that almost anytime. But we also have about 140 folks who had pledged for the campaign last year who have not pledged yet for this year. That's a list that Shannon's been working through, that we've had some people on the staff review and talk through. And so there's still a little bit of what if around some of those folks, thinking about that last 10%. And I want to show one last slide to kind of conceptualize where we've been in terms of this moment at annual meeting over the last 4 years. It's a little hard to see. There's a dark blue column at the bottom, and we're missing a y-axis. It starts at 1 million at the bottom, goes up to 1.7 million for the top line. You can't see that. But the idea here is in 2021, we had 738 pledges that came in biannual meeting for right about $1.5 million. The next year, 2022, we had 731 pledges come in for, I think it was 1.6, must be, yeah, about 1.6. Again, I don't have the access, so I'm trying to recall, which was great, very, very strong. And then we had 44 additional pledges come in for a little bit extra after annual meeting. Last year, we had 629 pledges come in by annual meeting for 1.34 million. And then there was a little bit of a panic, a little bit of urgency at this meeting last year, and another 100 pledges came in for $99,000. Some of those pledges came in after the special appeal, which happened in May. The special appeal is not shown, but that was about $127,000 additionally last year that helped balance the budget. So over here, the 639, those are the people who've pledged so far this year. That's a terrific number. You can see we're almost the same as last year in terms of pledges received by this point. But what did I just say? That would be almost $175,000. Am I reading these axes correctly? Ahead of last year, where we're at right now, $1.52 to $1.53 million is more than we achieved over the entire year in 2021. It's also more than we achieved after the special appeal in 2023. So in some ways, we feel good about this moment at the annual meeting, because we've seen an increasing number of pledges come in after the meeting for an increased pledging value. But we don't feel good enough about it. There's a fair bit of concern as we're looking at this set of meetings coming up to argue about budget, that we don't know whether that 1.53 is going to trend up to 1.7 or not. So I think I'll just end my session here by saying, thank you so much to those of you who are getting engaged in the pledging process. It's a really valuable tool that we do budgeting and the way that we think about finance at the cathedral. Thanks to those of you who were able to give, some of you very sacrificially, to meet that challenge of giving 10 to 15% more to get us ahead. Those of you who weren't able to do that this year or didn't think you were able to, there's still opportunity to give more if you find yourself more willing or more ready to make that jump than you were last year. And for those of you who are still looking to pledge, which I assume is not many in this room, please do. The sooner you can get in on that process, the easier it'll be for us to start recording some of these pledges and then give the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee more to work with as they're seeking to meet our needs for this next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. I'm especially grateful for you and your work this year. Andy lives out in Corbett, and so I'm really glad to see him in a warm, well-lit place. Okay, next up is our junior warden, Chris Maloney. Please give us your report.
Thank you. I actually wanted to say thank you to all of you for your support. And there's a couple people out here that I've leaned on heavily this last year, so thank you. Starting with the typical wear and tear on our building. It is an older building, so over the last year, our sextons have kept very busy with repairing leaks. We've had electrical upgrades, minor alterations to accommodate newer technologies, and there's been carpentry, painting, the typical kind of things for maintenance and repairs. Special projects, as mentioned in the annual report, we renovated the slight bathroom. There's an installation of new microphones in the cathedral. And these new mics are doing a lot more to pick up the choir and the Rosales organ, excuse me, which benefits the sound quality in the cathedral and streaming. And I just tapped the key, I hope. Sorry, there's a, I'm good, okay. Carpeting and chairs were replaced in the St. Benedict room, which was welcomed by the Cornerstone groups, and keep me away from technology. Currently, the Building and Grounds Committee is helping the Arts Commission with new lighting, hopefully soon in this hall, to help with our art shows. Other projects on the docket, kind of boring, but we need to do a lot of sidewalk repair. And that is not just on 19th, but it goes up Everett and on Trinity Place and around the parking lot a little louder. Sidewalk repair is on the docket. And that's a kind of a big project, tripping hazard. Something happens, it can turn into a lawsuit. I've seen it. So Building and Grounds Committee, we're prioritizing that. We're also in the process of finding contractors to help us with repairs to the Kempton floor and the kitchen floor, as well as security and safety. Security and safety is kind of a big deal. What we talk about at the Building and Grounds Committee and Jim and Lise have to deal with pretty much on a constant basis. I've got that we have challenges that we face here at Trinity. We are an urban church, an urban worship space, and it's not easy to deal with what's happening in our city. Some of it seems to be improving, and some of it is still a constant everyday dealing with what happens on our grounds with people. I don't know the right way to say it, but there's just a lot of activity in Northwest Portland. That's not just on our campus, but we're working with neighbors. We're working with other businesses in the neighborhood. We have met with there's a woman named Sarah. She's with the crime prevention through environmental design, City of Portland. She came through and spent about 3 hours with us, and I don't know how many hours, but she gave us about a 20-page document to help us with security issues and ways that we can do it through environmental design. It might be, you know, bushes or anyway, working on things to keep it beautiful, but keep it safe. Other things we've worked on, overnight patrols, we've increased them. That's an increase in our budget for safety and security. Jim has installed lighting both on the outside door here on the South Kempton and over the Glisten Suite window. And actually that's proven, I'll say it's proven to help with security issues. Where are we? Okay, something I wanted to bring up that is for all of us, and that is the doors that we come and go through here. They're often propped or left open. And I'll just say that's a big no-no. So I don't want to be admonishing as much as encourage each of us to really not prop a door open. If you need help with something, get someone to help you. If you see a door ajar, shut it. That'll make a big deal for anybody who's here, staff especially. I would like to recognize the Building and Grounds Committee. So if you're here, please stand. Anybody there? Tom, stand here. It's a great group of people and on that committee, and I really enjoy working with them. And I think we're pretty unified, working through things and making progress. I'd also like to recognize our sextons and facilities managers. Alex, I'm going to go through each of our sextons. Alex is our newest and our youngest sexton to join the team. He brings a great attitude and youthful energy to our crew. Andrew is our lead closing sexton. He has a keen attention to detail. His dedication needs to be noted. He lives nearby and he watches over the property all hours of the day and night to keep our cathedral and all of us here safe. Benjamin is new to the sexton team as of this past December and brings a wide array of skills in repair and enthusiasm for keeping the cathedral beautiful. Hagaya has been a sexton at Trinity. I love it. 15 years. Yeah. He is really knowledgeable about this building and the unique needs it has to be kept in tip-top shape. His dedication is unmatched. He most recently drove a lease through the ice storm to clear drains and reattach loose drain pipes to keep the basement from flooding. So good driving skill. John is our multi-talented repair specialist. He has done phenomenal work, both aesthetically and structurally, to keep our cathedral in good repair. His excellent work has saved the cathedral thousands of dollars, seriously. We could have hired outside contractors, but we have John. You may recognize Rick from his long-term commitment, excuse me, to the 19th Avenue curb, ensuring we have dry feet to step up through that big puddle. His dedication, he keeps our grounds clean and safe. He's out there every morning. I just want to, sorry. And during our recent ice storm, he, on his own volition, shoveled ice for hours to make sure our sidewalks were safe for people. Yeah. Special mention goes actually to a finance guy, Paul, who he has spent time with me, and as I wrote, bring me up to speed on the painful nuance of finance. It's not my world, but it's his, and you do a great job. And Paul comes to B&G meetings on occasion, and we're trying to make decisions and we don't know what to do, and he typically says you can do that or you can't do that. So thank you. In our tech crew, Amanda, tech team videography Sexton. So if you've ever watched a Sunday morning live stream, the attention to detail and care put into the video work is Amanda's doing. And Christian, Christian, you'll see in the back pew every Sunday morning as our skilled audio technician, and he also helps in the finance department. Sorry, yep. Importantly, we have two facilities managers, Elise Sandusky, who I think she's got a really tough job. Well, they both do. But Elise has a great spirit to take so many things on. She manages our crew. Here I go. I just love these guys. Elise manages our crew of sextons and guides them with a steady hand, handles a myriad of issues with a sense of determination and positivity. And the relationship she has developed with each of us really reflects who she is. And I'm so. What? All right, and Jim. All right. All right. All right. Jim, as you know, has a steady presence, is quick to smile, and he's always willing to take a call and address a need. And I've been fortunate to work with Jim, and I've come to know that he has a hands-on and a hands-off approach. And it's weird, but it's great. Great. No, he really gives the people that he works with either the sense of trust and ownership, and that's the hands-off approach, and the hands-on is just guidance and support. And his dedication to Trinity and to each of us is constant and evident. And sorry, anyway, we are the luckier for having Jim with us as well. So a big thing. Yes. All right. All right. Thank you. And the last thing, it's a pet project I'd love to do. Just before Christmas, the vestry got together and cleaned pews. And they're dirty, you know? So I'd love to have a group of volunteers that I've either decided to call the Pew Crew or the Knaves. I don't know. If anybody's interested, I thought, we could get together 2 or 3 times a year, 4 hours on a Saturday, and just vacuum, clean, wipe, do something. So I think the right way to say it is I've got a mailbox in the office and my email is available to you somehow
On the website.
on the website. So there we are. So yeah, if you're interested in something like that, please contact me. And that's what I've got to say. If there's anything I've missed, I didn't address, come find me and we'll talk. So thank you.
This is a pause.
I can't pull it up, never mind.
I didn't have any slides, so I'm not so concerned about that. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Buildings and Grounds. Thank you, Sextons. So grateful for your work. I'm going to report mostly on the activities and priorities of your vestry. And I'll conclude with an opportunity. I'm going to open up the floor for you, any of you who feel so called, to share something of your experience this year. Share a moment that moved you, a program that impressed you, a person whose service you're grateful for. We've been doing this at vestry meetings. I thought this year we call it Points of Pride. And I'd like to hear from any of you who feel so moved about what your point of pride is at Trinity this year. So be thinking about that while I give you my report on your vestry priorities and activities this year. So we're primarily concerned with having the ultimate responsibility of the finances and the property of this sacred enterprise. And we advise Nathan on temporal affairs of our operations. I like to think of it, it's as if we manage the infrastructure of this place. It's like over 173 years, this enormous, beautiful, powerful source of energy has developed here. And vestry's job is to keep the generators running and manage the transmission system that distributes that holy compassion, deep beauty, intellectual curiosity, and uncommon warmth amongst ourselves and our community and the world. What that really looks like, though, is worrying about money. We review budgets, approve expenditures, cheer Andy on for fundraising. And so I want to say a little bit about that. That $1.7 million goal that we had this year is a real number. We didn't just arbitrarily pull that out of wishful thinking. It is our anticipated needs. And personally, I'm concerned about being some $170,000 short at this time. I think about how we're going to manage if we do have that shortfall, and it could be painful. It could be visible to the parish. We cut programs significantly last year, and my fear is that we'll have no place to turn except in something that affects staffing and compensation. Through questions, that's the biggest part of our budget. Some 60% of our budget is staff, and we have limited options for cutting. So if you haven't pledged yet, I reiterate, please do. On a positive note, I want to thank you for your generosity throughout this year. You responded to our special appeal beautifully. You responded to this year's call for increasing your pledge magnificently, and we're so grateful for that. So thank you. And I heard from the pulpit today something about let your conscience be your guide. You have an opportunity. Part of what vestry does is develop policies and practices for our operations. This vestry has been especially concerned about social justice. We gratefully received the recommendations of the Racial Justice Task Force last year, 19 recommendations that we're grappling with implementing throughout our operations. Some of them we delegated to staff, some of them we delegated to ministries and commissions. Outreach does this all day, every day. And some we kept for ourselves. A couple of things that are important that the vestry is primarily responsible for is we're going through our governance manual. That's the sort of the playbook for how we do what we do, and making sure the language of that governance manual reflects our commitment to equity, inclusion, and justice. We're also wanting to develop a training program for anyone at Trinity who's interested, but certainly for our leadership on becoming anti-racist. And members of vestry are currently working on surveying what those options are, and we hope to make some recommendations about training in this area for all of us in the coming year. Would the members of the current vestry who are present, would you please stand to be recognized? Thank you so much. So as I said, one of the features of vestry meeting is a point of pride where we take a moment to appreciate something good. Does anybody have something they want to share? Yes. Go ahead.
Recognize Judy Stone. She's the scheduling person and the part is whole our outreach. Get out the door program. She's here every day, organizing the place, puts the schedule together every month, and it runs smooth, and we serve lots of folks that really need our help.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Judy Stone. Any more? Yes.
I'd like to recognize Barry Beat, who has brought people into that community lunch and integrated them, which they wouldn't be integrated without her help in doing that and just making this the cheerful place it is. And I think adding some warmth and emotion to that wonderful community lunch on Wednesday.
Thank you. Yes, everyone is involved. Yes.
Continuing with regard to the community lunch on Wednesday, I'd like to recognize Terry Petty.
Yeah.
Very fun. Thank you. Tony.
I'm grateful that Jerry's was reintroduced this year.
Yes.
I agree with her on that. And also, I am thankful for the technology, which I'm taking the day off work so I can be here, but often I work in the evening, Sundays and Thursdays, a lot on Sunday morning, YouTube is in. And when I was traveling last summer, the last Sunday in July, I was between planes in Charlotte, and I was there longer than expected, thanks to the weather. And in other places going on a plane on further. So I took some time watching the sermon from that morning on YouTube. So I got Nathan to help me go time to the airport. And then in Oregon, I was in North Carolina, in between Connecticut and Oregon, because we catch flights 3 o'clock.
Thanks, Jen. Yes. There's no excuse for missing church now. Barbara.
Like recognize and Helen Studsbury for keeping it off with you. And Helen also for leading the Sexton and the Afterlife. You know, they work behind the scenes to really make the sort of and it's you know, the all the deal is kind of done behind the scenes, and I
Vicky Money and Helen Sudbury. Thank you.
just want an addendum to that point about Helen Sudbury, who I think should be called the same Helen. She's been doing backlighting training for 20 years, I think that's correct. So I just want you to know.
Wow. Yes.
I would like to say thank you to the choir. Choir members and their fearless leader, KUX.
Yay.
I would add to that, that I'm so thankful for Katie and the whole music department, especially for the gift that her sister has given us in this holy hours during that day.
Here, here.
How about that family? From the music department and his sister, I see way in the back.
I'd like to thank our visitors, many who are here today, the Trinity, Leslie Carmet, Carl Betty Moore, Pam Nelson, Patty, and Susie. So thank you all.
Thank you. Keep this with me. Marty?
I would like to thank Beth Harmon who puts the ushers together. Oh, that's.
Yeah, Barbara. Okay, Amy.
Have our asset read back. Thank you.
I bet we. Support.
I'm sure she wouldn't want the credit, but Shannon McCauley, for those who didn't know, Nathan was on sabbatical last summer. A lot of transition with new clergy. And Shannon was placed with the responsibility of wearing so many hats and doing so many things here, and did it seamlessly. And even though the stress was mounting, handled it gracefully. So I just wanted to recognize her.
Thank you.
Who everybody's able to have her on the beach, really lunch, play golf, nonstop. Get people who play with him, she come and try and sing and.
Where else? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, okay, one more. Go ahead.
But when we had the open rehearsals for Advent, where people were getting over their readings and doing them several times, I appreciated that this is a church where we have open rehearsal, where people can see how things work, and people can see the real love and concern.
Thank you. Open love and concern. That's okay. Jen, I'm going to close it down now. If you have other points of pride, put them into our social media channels. We can celebrate there. I want to keep the meeting moving along. I'm sure we're all eager to hear Nathan's report, so I'll yield the floor to Dean LeRood.
You've been sitting for an hour. You want to stand up and stretch for a second? Sure. That'll give me a chance to transition my slides. Okay. Okay, some of us are eager for brunch, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. Echoing Bill's question, people ask Bill, how are the finances of the cathedral? People ask me, how is Trinity doing? I hear that from, especially when I encounter somebody out in Portland who is a sometimes Trinity person, maybe hasn't been coming as frequently post-pandemic, maybe they're watching online, maybe they'll join us for Christmas Eve or Easter or a wedding or a funeral. Casual friends of the cathedral will say, how are things going? And often they're listening, I think, for what we all know to be true, at least those of us who are involved in arts and cultural organizations more broadly. Some of you have seen these statistics for theater companies, for symphony organizations, operas, art museums, a lot of other cultural institutions. Attendance is down 40 to 60% from where it was before the pandemic. This is so if you are I serve on the board of a theater, Profile Theater. If you are a lover of arts in Portland, this is a really important year to support the arts organizations that you care about, because nearly every single one of them is 1 year away from closure. We've seen a lot of arts organizations fold this year, and in many ways, I think about Trinity when I kind of think about how are we doing vis-a-vis other, I mean, I can look at other churches, other Episcopal churches, but in many ways, we operate a little bit more like the Oregon Symphony than we do like, you know, St. Swithin's in the Swamp down in Selwood. So our attendance is not quite as down. Our Advent average Sunday attendance this year was 487. Church of the Commons saw 150 families that first Sunday in Advent. That's a huge increase from where we were before the pandemic. So Church of the Commons is growing post-pandemic. Services are starting to recover. Lessons and carols saw 543 people. That's 446 people in the pews, 97 people participating virtually with that service. That's closer to where we were pre-pandemic. We saw almost 2,000 people at Christmas Eve this year. About 1,500 folks in the pews and another 237 online. They're again, not quite where we were in 2019, but getting closer. Alicia Johnson, who's a statistician on our vestry, put these numbers together, and you can sort of see Advent attendance over the past 5 years. You can't quite see the number, but that's about I think that's 500 people in 2019, kind of down from there. And then you can see how we're breaking it out now that we're streaming. And what we count in that virtual number, those are people who are watching simultaneous to the actual service. There's another several hundred people that watch after the fact. But those virtual numbers are people who are logging into Facebook or to YouTube or on our website to watch a long time with us in real time. So we consider that's the number that we put in the book. People who are participating in the same event at the same time, whether they're in the room or online. You can sort of see kind of where Advent was, where Christmas Eve is. We're not quite back to where we were, but we're getting closer. Although even that framing is a little tricky for me, because you've heard me say from this mic before, there's no going back, right? We are not recreating Trinity Cathedral circa 2019. That was a great Trinity Cathedral, by the way. I loved walking in here and the thing just like happened. We're no longer in that era, but we're moving forward. Our ministries are starting to bounce back. Godly Play had 42 kids in Godly Play on the first Sunday of Advent. That's like double or triple what we usually have. Some of that attendance has continued. We'll see kind of how it continues. But Sharice's kind of anecdotal data is that we used to say a family with kids who was we knew them. They were sort of core to our families, would attend about once a month. That was regular Sunday attendance for families. What we're seeing now is a smaller number of kids, but generally they are here every week or every other week. So my sense is that's also true in the pews, right? There's a core group of us that are here pretty consistently, and then a lot of others of us that come in and out. So we're really seeing those statistics play out in our church school in particular. Wednesday at the Commons is starting to recover to pre-pandemic numbers. We're averaging about 55 to 65 people on Wednesday nights for classes. We've got 17 choristers this year. That's starting to come back to where we were. So the chorister program is one of that's kind of one of the indicators that we look to see kind of how are we doing compared to where we were before the pandemic. Food pantry numbers are up about 200%. That's not a number that I'm proud of. That's a number that we should all be sobered by. Those are not numbers we want to see increase, but the need is increasing. And our capacity to respond to the need is also increasing. We're leveraging technology. Jan talked about this in her point of pride, right? Podbean, did I change this? It's Podbean. Bean, I did change that. It was Beam before, but it's Podbean is the name of our podcast catcher, and YouTube. That is our fastest growing congregation. We have about 1,100 views on YouTube, 400 downloads. That's the sermon that is the most downloaded one has about 1,100 views and about 400 downloads. What that means is more people will hear my sermon as a standalone podcast or video than will ever be in the cathedral to hear it live, which changes the way I think about what I say from the pulpit. So by the numbers, right? We've had about 16,000 downloads on Podbeam, about 8,500 views on YouTube. That's just the sermon feed. That doesn't include all of the other. We have a bunch of music clips on there, class clips. I'm told that the music clips, Katie, that are going out on YouTube are being used in hospital rooms, as Ron Westner had Trinity music playing as he died last week. Thanks to the ministry of our choir. That was true for Dick and Jane Flippinger too. They were using some of those feeds. So these musical offerings that we're putting out into the world on YouTube and on Facebook are having a life far beyond a Sunday morning service. They're a part of our, I think they're part of our radical hospitality out in the world and are being accessed and used for that reason. So that is, in some ways, that's kind of our new, right? Like we're not going back to 2019, the cathedral where everything happened in the building. We're some form of a hybrid community now, where our fastest growing congregation is people who probably don't even live in Portland, but connect with us through podcasting, through videos, through YouTube, through Facebook, through Instagram, all the other ways in which we're putting TikTok. We have a huge TikTok thing happening that I don't even know about because I stay off of TikTok. It freaks me out, but it exists. And we are finding people that way too. That is our fastest growing congregation. That is The numbers of people who are finding us that way is really staggering. So I don't quite know what that will mean for the Trinity of the future. I'm fascinated by what it means to think about that as one of, I see your hand, Pam. I'm going to ask you to hold it till the end because I have a couple of things I want to get through. So all of it to say technology is increasingly a part of what we're doing. You saw this slide last year. We're no longer printing bulletins. We're saving up almost $50,000 a year by not doing that, and 30 trees a year. I asked you to join me in this experiment. This was at the annual meeting last year. I said, try it, right? And I am so proud of you. Because I look out at the congregation on a Sunday morning and I see you like fiddling with your phone, trying to get it to like make a hymn look good so that you can read it. I see you sighing and being frustrated and turning to the person next to you and complaining about what's happening. But then like finding like, helping somebody. I saw this happen a couple weeks ago where like there was a woman trying to figure out and the person next to her like found the hymn book, found the hymn and handed it to her. Like just use this week. You are taking care of each other in the pews. It is a beautiful thing to see. I know that the online leaflets are not perfect. Some of you hate them. Some of you have discovered that like this is a way that you actually can participate. Now I think about Frederica Barnes, right? Who like she's sight impaired. She can't see anything printed, but an online leaflet, she can have a thing that reads it to her. So for the first time in Trinity's history, Frederica can participate in the service in a way that she never could. Our technology, I want to frame it not just as a cost saver, which it is, not just as an environmental saver, which it is, but as a way of increasing access and offering as good or better kinds of equal access for everybody, regardless of their abilities. Now, what that means is we have to also then get the analog parts of it right, because not everybody carries around a device that can access the internet. So my new experiment with this year, this is what I'm going to be trying during Lent. I had an experience Lent. I'll talk about this probably as we get closer to Lent, but I tried last year to give up my cell phone for Lent. I managed to get about 2 weeks before I realized that I tried to make it a dumb phone, right? I was only receiving calls on it. And I realized that I cannot do my job without a smartphone in my pocket. Like I just literally can't do it. Many of you may have discovered this too, right? Like we depend on these little computers that we carry around in our pockets, many of us. And I came to really appreciate all the things that a smartphone allows me to do. I am really thankful to this technology that actually allows me to be the pastor to 2,000 people in a way that I know my predecessors, were doing it well, but differently. I'm able to do it in my way because of a smartphone and the technology it allows me to do. And I am craving places in my life. When I go to the symphony now, I don't just turn my phone on silent. I put it on airplane mode and I put it away. So for 2 hours, I can focus on just being a body in a room, experiencing something that's happening in the space. And my sense is I kind of want to remember church that way too. So my experiment in Lent this year is to see if I can get through a Sunday service without a smartphone. And I invite you to join me. You'll hear more about that in the weeks to come. The other new thing that's going to be coming this year, and you heard a little bit about this at the annual meeting last year. Many of you know the roof on top of you right now is about one bad windstorm away from total catastrophe. The roof of this building, Kempton Hall, needs some work. We think it's actually not going to cost as much as we initially thought it might. So we're launching a capital campaign. You'll hear more about this in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be kicking off here in a couple of weeks. We completed a feasibility study this fall to get a sense of what projects are most important to our long-term sustainability as a community, and then what kind of funding we think might be available in this community for those projects. We set a goal of 4 million. Our professionals tell me that there is 4 million available in this community if we do our job. So there's a number of projects that will fall under that umbrella. What does that say? Roof, kitchen, and the courtyard. This next capital campaign will really focus on this space. In many ways, Kempton Hall is not just our fellowship hall. This is really becoming the heart of our ministry in all kinds of ways. I invite you to take a second and think about all the ways in which this room is used throughout the week. During the pandemic, there were flats of cans all over this space. It was the food warehouse distribution center. The food pantry happens that way. There's people making food, unpacking food, gleaning food coming in here. This is Food Central, Monday through Saturday. Sacred dance happens on this labyrinth. The Labyrinth Guild uses it for labyrinth walks. You see the incredible art on these walls. This is our art gallery. This is where our kids come to sing. There's people playing the piano here. This is in many ways, this is the heart of our community, this room. So we really want to make sure that this room is able to do all that is being asked of it right now, and all that may be asked of it in the future. We're thinking about kind of the next iteration of Kempton Hall. What does a fellowship hall, what does a church fellowship hall need to look like? Do we really need an unusable stage back there, or could that be repurposed? These are some of the questions we're asking. The capital campaign is going to focus on Kempton Hall, on our courtyard, on our kitchen. $4 million. It's a 6-month campaign. Lee Wilson and Matt Thompson have agreed to chair it. They're here. Matt's right there. Lee, I'm so grateful for your leadership, friends. I could not do this work without you by my side. Thank you for taking this on. It's a daunting challenge. $4 million is not a little bit of money, but we are moving forward with confidence, and you will all be invited to participate. Not all of us are going to be able to give $1 million signature gift. Although if you have the capacity to give $1 million signature gift, I would love to have a conversation with you earlier. But this, like everything else we do, right? This is going to be about a whole community coming together, each of us doing what we can in order to preserve our sacred home. So we're really excited by this. It's going to be a fun process. That is what I have to report. Pam, you had a hand up and I am happy to take the question.
Yeah, I'm just curious in terms of how we capture this whole new growing congregation in terms, I mean, does that group tend to pledge?
No, Pam asked about the growing congregation of folks who are connecting with us on social media, podcasts, all those sorts of ways. Do they pledge? And the answer is no. Although many of you are part of that congregation, and I hope you're pledging, and I hope that when you pledge, you think about not just keeping the lights on and the staff paid, but that a piece of what your pledge supports is our ability to be a resource online for all kinds of people, many of whom do not consider themselves to be Christians. They're kind of curious about this label Episcopalian, especially on TikTok. My sense is like a lot of that is like Gen Zers and other people who are actually very curious about religion, historically kind of put off by the way Christianity is usually promulgated in this culture, but really interested in what a progressive church looks like. So one of the I consider that evangelism. Right? That's outreach and evangelism. Those are probably not people who are ever going to make a pledge. So that's a way that I think those of us who understand pledging and how that works can support this new thing. We've talked, and we will continue to sort of talk about, can that be monetized? What's the right way to steward that congregation? My sense is right now, any barriers you put up in that world is a quick way to have people click beyond you. So everything we're putting out there is entirely free. We are making a ton of content available at no cost at all. I have questions about the financial sustainability of that. We'll continue to ask that. But for right now, that is a gift that we are offering to our larger community. And your pledge helps make that possible. So thank you for your support of this place. It's reaching all kinds of people whom you will never meet. But that's a piece of what we are and what we can do. So thank you for that. Yeah, Elliot.
This question, so much we raised so many questions in what you just said that I had not thought about. The one thing I think a lot about is that local leadership is a real problem today. Leadership in this community is your leadership. And I think on behalf of everybody, I want to thank you for the leadership you showed.
You guys, we have a couple more things to do. Don't get too busy yet. Any final questions for the good of the order? Then I've got a bunch of thank yous. We've been doing thank yous. Yes, Susie Thompson. Yes, great question. Susie's questions were about that 6-month timeline on the capital campaign. Is that 6 months and then we launch? Is that 6 months to gather all of the pledges in? It's 6 months to do the fundraising. Last time we did it, it was a 2-year fundraising window. This is a 6-month fundraising window. No, the money does not have to be there. It'll be another 5-year or 3-year or 5-year window, right? Pledge payable over time. That's how we do all. So you're not up, we're not going to be phoning up for like a check 6 months from now. But we are going to be asking you to think now about how you can support the capital campaign, because we're going to be having those conversations over the next 6 months. It's going to be fast. It's going to be work, and it's going to be joyful. All of the best practices. Some of you have been involved in capital campaigns. You know that when they're run well, your annual giving increases, your participation increases, the excitement of a community increases. Often in our history here at Trinity, it's changed how we staff, because we staff towards a capital campaign. We grow as a community when we engage capital campaigns. And when we do them well, we come out on the other side with a really deeper sense of engagement and excitement. So there's a bunch of other goods that are not quantifiable related to a capital campaign. That's a piece of why we decided we've been through some stuff these past 5 years. A lot of our friends are no longer in the room right now, right? We have had a lot of loss. I mean, Shannon is working on 9 funerals right now. I did 2 this weekend. That was, I mean, there is just a lot of loss in this community. That loss hits heavy to me because I've been here long enough now where it's like I'm burying my friends, not my parishioners. And that's a weird thing to do. It's a really holy thing to get to do. My sense is we are ready for something big. Before the pandemic, I talked with you about a moonshot, right? Like that the things were going really well. It was time for us to kind of pull on our big boy pants or our big girl pants or our big whatever pants and like do something hard. I think we're ready for that. This capital campaign is going to be a lift for us, but I think we're up to the task. I think we're up to the challenge. I'm so proud of you. And I want to see what you're capable of when you are really able to spread your wings and fly. When I watch this community do that, there is nothing like that. So I am excited to see that. Again, Jan, I see your hand. I'm gonna add, you and I can talk afterwards because I'm looking at the time and I want us to move on to a couple other things. First of all, some thank yous. Ford Morishita and Barbara Whitmore, you are in the room. I'm gonna ask you to come up because we have some stuff for you. You have served this vestry ably for the past 3 years. Ford, you were chair of our nominating committee. Barbara, you chaired our anti-racism task force. That was some good and holy work. Ford and Barbara are preparing now to step into the great alumni society of the White Glove Club. Some of you know, it used to be at Trinity that in order to be an usher, you had to have been a former vestry man. This was when men were on vestry and women ran the auxiliary campaigns. That is no longer the case, thank God. But ushers at Trinity used to wear white gloves. So as a testament to your graduation into the Great White Glove Society, you are always welcome to serve as you do for it as a host. If you want to start wearing white gloves when you usher, you are invited to do that. These are your honorary vestry white gloves, and of course, we have flowers for you as well. Let's thank these friends for their service. Do you want to talk about the Holy Spirit Award? Yeah.
We have a picture.
We do.
So this might be my turn to cry. Yeah, this might be my turn to cry. Each year, vestry recognizes a parishioner who's delivered extraordinary service to the parish community. And we're all grieving the loss of Barbara Lamandry, who died just this past December. Barbara served with us on vestry. She was involved in a lot of ministries, most recently outreach. And we're so grateful to have known her and so thankful for what she did for us. We have a opportunity to honor her with this certificate. I was told there might be a representative of Barbara's friends. Please come forward and accept this on our behalf. Inga Dubé does a beautiful job of creating a special memorial. And so we will honor Barbara with that. We will also, yes. And we can honor Barbara by emulating some of her behavior. We can emulate Barbara through the kinds of questions she asks, like, well, why not? Or we can honor Barbara by answering questions the way she most frequently did. Well, yes, here I am. I'll do that. That's how we can. Thank you. Is there any other business?
We've had a chance to thank some of our sextons, but I want to give a special thank you to the entire Trinity staff, many of whom are in the room right now. You all got to come forward because we want to see your faces. This is a pretty incredible team, and I'm really thankful to have them at my side each and every day. It is 1 o'clock. There is one more official, there's actually 2 more official things to do. One of them is yours, Greg.
The 173rd annual meeting of Trinity Parish is now adjourned, and we get a performance of the doxology, please. Kate. Go in peace, love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.